Hello there. This video is going to be a little different from my normal videos, and probably anybody watching it is finding it because of the title rather than through my name. It's the kind of video I would class as a public information video, though that sounds a little bit pretentious. But the aim of the video is to help people who might find themselves in a distressing situation regarding parking fines. Although, to be accurate, you can't get a parking fine from a private car park. Fines can only be issued from councils and courts and things like that. When you get a private parking fine, it's a speculative invoice. It's them sending you an invoice hoping that they're going to get money for a service that they haven't really delivered in the first place. So although I've got my pipe, it's not a pipe video. So in the past, I've had 3 different demands from different groups. One many years ago, I say many years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and then 2 this year. So really pushed it up a bit there, the total. And each one I dealt with very differently. So this video might go on a little bit, but it's worth you listening to find out how you might be able to deal with yours. Now, this video is going to be especially relevant if you live in the UK, but there might be help there. There might be cross things that will cross across different countries and might be good advice wherever you live in the world. Dog's bothering me. He wants to say hi. Come here, Charlie. He's grown a bit since my other video. My daughter's dog, Charlie. There you go. Right, so first of all, the old way of dealing with it, which happened to me many years ago, as I say. My kids were on a show in Birmingham, which was a good drive away. So in the morning, I drove to what was then Toys R Us car park. Shows how long ago it was. We don't have Toys R Us here anymore. I parked on a Toys R Us car park, went in to get a birthday banner, which they didn't have. Came out, carried on to Birmingham, did a bit of shopping. I think I even filmed my video there at Gas Street Basin with the Peterson Dracula Sandblasted 03. But there you go. And then went to the show. After the show, kind of late at night, we went back, and on the way parked on the same car park because they shared a car park with a McDonald's, and we wanted to get a quick snack and a coffee and things like that. And then a few days later, I got a parking notice, something similar to this, where you get a photograph of your car driving on and pulling off, and it said that we'd been at that car park for 8 hours, and I knew that we hadn't, and I got proof from witnesses that we hadn't. But I did all my research, looked into it, and most of the expert advice then on YouTube, on forums all over the internet, on advice sites, they all said the same thing, which was ignore it. These private car parking companies have no more authority than a private individual. They have exactly the same rights as if you put up a sign on your land, if you had any land, like a field. If you put up a sign saying that you'd charge a certain amount if anybody parked there, if they did, you'd have to make a claim in the small claims court. It'd be a civil matter. Nobody's broken any laws. It'd be a civil matter, and you'd have to get the money off them that way. And these companies operate on the same way, but the sort of dirty trick that they do is they use a language and a way of putting the forms together to make it look like they have the same authority as legitimate local authorities. In a way, all they're doing is trying to frighten people into paying up. And it works because they make millions of pounds every year by frightening vulnerable people, telling them that they'll take them to court and that that'll affect their credit reference and they won't be able to get mortgages and stuff like that. Real nasty. I call them parking pirates, amongst other things. Hold on. Sorry about that. Interruptions. But my recommendation, if you get a parking penalty, never pay. Never pay. If you're in the right, always fight. Anyway. Sorry. This is why I don't make many videos now. No privacy. Where was I? Yeah, the advice then, because this was a few years ago, was not to pay. So I didn't even respond to their demands. Back to the crypt here. Creaking doors. Yeah, didn't even respond to their demands, and what they do, they sent about 3 demand letters, and they said that it was passed on to a debt collection agency, which they tried to frighten me, a debt collector will call at your house. And again, they're private individuals, they're not bailiffs, they don't have authority. You can basically open the door to them and they can say, from the debt collector agency, you owe us this much, and you can just say, go away, not paying you, nothing they can do. It's got to go through the small claims court. Anyway, so we had about 3 letters from a debt collection agency saying we were going to court, and sure enough, after about 12 months of this, it stopped. Never bothered us again, realised we weren't going to fall for it, and that was it. I'm going to pause it again because this is ridiculous. I think I might get 5 minutes now. So that was historically how you dealt with it. Just ignore it and they'll go away. And then, as I say, this year we had 2 come. And the first one came, and my wife had been waiting for her money to go in before Christmas because she needed to get Christmas shopping. And then on the 23rd of December, her wages went in, so her and her mum went uptown in our family car, parked on a retail park with loads of shops, did a lot of shopping, stopped there, had a coffee to refresh ourselves, then carried on, did a bit more shopping, went home and thought, that's great, we've got it all done in one area, one car park, all done, Christmas is sorted. A few days later, they got one of these from Smart Parking. Picture of the time the car went on, the time the car come off, and saying that they'd stopped longer than the 3 hours they were permitted. Well, they were shopping, a big shop, Christmas shopping. Of course they're going to stop there longer than 3 hours. So I mentioned it to some of the guys at work about it, because we've been talking about this, and I'd always said to people, just ignore the letters. And the guys that had them said, oh well, rather than risk it, I paid. Anyway, I ignored it because I decided that's what worked last time, that's what would work this time. A few days later, we went on a shopping trip for some essentials at a big shop called Home Bargains. It is a very big shop, and my wife has difficulty. She's got a mobility issue with her foot, so she can't. It can be painful when she walks sometimes, so she has to take her time walking, otherwise it's an issue. So it took about 2 hours to get around this big shop, and we weren't rushing. We were looking at things, got a full trolley, waited in a long queue, loaded the car, Went home and thought nothing about it. A few days later, we got one of these from Parking Eye saying that there's notices there which we'd never paid any attention of because to us it's free parking. They're going to give you a reasonable amount of time to go in there. But they said apparently you got a 90-minute wait and we were in there for 120 minutes. So that's two demands. So the first one, Smart Parking, said it's £100 fee to be paid, all the usual way it's worded, you must pay this. There is a discount if you pay before so many days. You can pay £60. So generous. You can just pay £60 if you pay it early. And the other one was the same, £100 if you pay it early. It's only £60. So what's that? £120 altogether for shopping. Anyway, I told them at work about this one as well. And the crew commander, one of my the sort of line manager, he said to me, he says, no, he said, Parking Eye, he says, that's one I had. He says, and I looked into it and they prosecute, they win in court 90% of the time. He said, so I just paid up. The subtext being, of course, he thought I should do the same. But, where's that sort of never say die spirit, 10% chance, that's good odds for me. That's a good day, 10% chance. So I thought, no way, don't pay. So the way I dealt with it, because it's two different situations, and this may be what you need to consider. With the Parking Eye one, they were the ones I was worried about, because I know these are the ones that set the precedent, that changed the way things are done. The old way, you just ignored. That changed in 2016 when Parking Eye took somebody to court because they'd gone down that route of just ignoring it. Took them to court and actually won in court. The judge basically had a great big dump on English law and stuck two fingers up to it and says, no, these private individuals can do this and that. So we've got to fight it a different way. What I did was I decided, rather than go to these people, because it's a waste of time going to these parking companies, because at the end of the day, they have an appeal system. They're not interested in your appeal. They're not interested in your reasons. At the end of the day, these shit weasels, they're just parking pirates. All they want to do is get revenue off vulnerable people. Just pay up. Okay? Threats and intimidation, just pay up. So I knew it was a waste of time going to them. So because the one was a car park on Home Bargains, that company, Parking Eye, just looks after that one shop's parking area. So I thought, go to the shop instead. At the end of the day, I'm the customer of that shop. I go there regularly, about once a fortnight. I spend quite a bit of money there because it's supposed to be good value. So although these aren't interested in their customers, they probably will be. So I looked up online, Home Bargains customer support, and I made an appeal to them. I sort of sent an email to their help thing, and they basically come back and did a complete, sloping shoulders on it. Oh, the parking's nothing to do with us. It's not our thing. It belongs to Parking Eye. They sort it out. You'll have to appeal to them. I'd already explained about my wife's issues with mobility, being able to get around the shop. how by law they have to make allowances for people who haven't any sort of injury or disability that's going to impede them getting round. How I wouldn't want to speak to Parking Eye because I don't want to communicate with them. Completely ignored all of that I'd said and just said, no, this is the avenue you go down. You've got to appeal to Parking Eye. I basically sent an email back saying, no, you're their employer in this circumstance. You're the ones who've hired them to do this. And I'm sure if one of your managers turned up on the car park, you'd be able to sort it out. Come back with a reply saying, look, I can't help you. You'll have to appeal to them. And if you don't get anywhere, we might look into it and help you. So I was furious, really angry with the Home Bargains customer support. Complete waste of time. And then it happened that my wife told me that she told a friend of hers about it, and the friend had said, well, I was in Home Bargains when a customer came in, waving one of these, asking for the manager, told the manager what had happened, and the manager said, oh, it's disgusting what they're doing, leave it with me, I'll sort it out. Went off, come back and said it's clear. I thought, well, that sounds promising. So I took this and the receipts I'd had. That's important. If you've got receipts from your shopping, take that, because that's your proof that you weren't using their car park to shop somewhere else. If you don't have the receipts, you'll just have to put on your nicest smile and be as polite as possible and try and get around the manager. So I went up to Home Bargains, asked to see the manager, who was a lovely lady, and explained the situation. And it was completely different from the customer support. It was like, yeah, okay. She says, are you shopping here or have you just popped in? I said, I've just popped in. Okay, she says, if you can wait there, I'll go and make a call and sort it out. I thought, how different can it be, from being so bureaucratic to somebody just saying, yeah, I'll sort it out. Came back about 2 minutes later, said, it's cancelled. That's it. She says, if you have any more problems with parking, just come in and see us and we can normally sort it out. Okay, so the lesson there, especially with these, because these guys are probably the worst of the worst. They're the scummiest of the scummiest. They go after people. They're willing to take people to court. They're willing to make an example of people. But if they're just doing the car park for one shop, go to the manager or manageress of that shop, tell them they can sort it out with a phone call. It's been done. If they can do it once, anywhere can do it. Right, so that's those. The other company, Smart Parking, wasn't so worried about them because they haven't got a big record for taking people to court. So I wasn't so worried. I was, right, okay, so what do I do? So they'd sent that one. I was expecting to get 3 more like this, but they didn't do that. What they did, straight away, I got a letter from a debt collection agency. So they gave me one chance at the £60, saying that if I didn't pay £60, it'd be £100. Because I ignored them, they went straight to a debt collection, and look what the debt collection agency's asking, £170. Pay up £170 because basically these have bought the debt off those. And I looked this company up, and they're a London-based company, bunch of bloody shite hawks. Anyway, I thought, right, I can either ride this out to court, I've got my reasons and whatever, but I thought I'll try the same tactic again. The difference is that this company were on a retail park, so that's one car park for several different shops. So I took the receipts my wife could gather together from things that she'd bought, went to each shop individually. Each one said, well, it's not to do with us, that car park we share with other people. You need to speak to the security office. The security staff have got a little building in the car park. You need to speak to them. I was hoping, go from shop to shop, that one of them would take the initiative and say, yeah, I can phone them. But apparently they don't have the same power as a shop that has one car park with one authority over it. So I thought, right, that doesn't work in that situation then. So, excuse me, look at my poor old vape. It's that wrecked, it's held together with rubber bands. So yeah, so I went to the security office, explained the situation. I said, all the shops have told me to come and speak to you. This was the situation, blah, blah, blah. They said, we'd like to help, but unfortunately, we only deal with the security. We don't manage the actual car park. That's, I think they were Colliers or something like that. She said, like, if you look, you see the signs with the pictures of the security cameras on, there's a number there. She said, but tell you what, I'll give you the email for the people we have to contact. So if a shop's getting an area manager come down for the day, they normally tell the security office, and the security office emails the car park owners, who then put a thing on so that when that number plate gets flagged up, Smart Parking know not to bother them. So I thought, well, it's a slim chance, but it's worth trying. So when I got the emails for the people who own and manage the car park, or at least manage the car park, sent an email to them. And bearing in mind, it had gone past that stage now of just paying a fine. It was now in the hands of a debt collection agency. And I thought, even if they want to help, it might be past that point now, because the debt collection agent might say, well, hang on, we've bought this debt, we want something back for what we've bought now. But I explained the situation in an email to both of the people that organise it. One was on annual leave, unfortunately. The other one said they'd pass it on to somebody else in their organisation there was a name for it, but it was somebody that was under them but had like a management type role. That's all I can say. That person got in touch with me and said, yep, no problem, I can sort it out. However, the reference number you've sent me seems to be from a debt collection agency. If you send me the reference number from Smart Parking, I can sort it out. And I was like, I'm almost too frightened to count my chickens before they hatch, because they're saying they can sort it out. Can't be that easy. Surely they're going to come back and say, oh, I've tried, but apparently the debt collection agency won't allow it. But no. I sent that number with bated breath. In the morning, in the evening, an email had come through. I looked and it says, we can confirm that has now been cancelled. So that's 2 cancelled, 2 that were received in the space of, well, it was over a month period. Both of them cancelled. I might point out that there was a couple of other avenues, but those were the 2 that were successful. So the 2 different scenarios, one with one car park or multiple shops sharing a car park. Okay, so you need to decide what approach suits you better. But before I tried my hand with parking, like going into Home Bargains and talking to the manager, I did actually send a type of appeal, I think it was, explaining the situation, but in a way that was like under the Disabilities Act, I think it was, something like that, you have to make allowances for people with disabilities, blah blah blah, I don't feel that you have, etc etc. So went down that route. And then also there was a section of European law about not being found guilty of something until you've had a fair trial, etc. But I got that sort of information from another YouTuber who I'm subscribed to. I'll have to leave his name in the comment section because it escapes me now, but he's a very funny guy. He's anti-authoritarian and he's anti-woke, and he's a very you want to see the video he makes about smart parking and the letter he writes, and it's absolutely hilarious. But he doesn't fear these people, and that's what they thrive on, people being frightened and giving in to them. And you've just got to, as I say, if you know you're in the right, you've got to fight. Okay, you cannot let these bullies bully you out of a fortune, because they're literally making millions. They're driving around in Ferraris and Porsches and things like that, and probably got big, massive houses out in the sticks. Getting rich off the fat of ordinary little people just trying to manage. Just pause it a sec. Oh yeah, and I sent quite a nasty letter to home bargain support staff as well, explaining how I'd got out of it and how useless they were at helping me. Basically said, you know, why is it that this manageress was able to sort it out with one phone call, which is exactly what I asked you to do, but you couldn't do it? I said, what, has she got some special Jedi mind powers or something, or did she go to Hogwarts, you know, that she could do stuff that you just couldn't be asked to do, basically. But I tell you what though, prevention is better than cure. And I've already decided, I feel bad because that manageress at Home Bargains helped me out, and that I always think that a good deed deserves loyalty. But I don't think I'll be shopping there again, just because because Home Bargains as an organisation have hired these cockwombles that use intimidation tactics. So that means I won't go back there and spend my money there. And the same goes for the retail park I went to. But any car park I go to, I look, and if I see the signs there with the parking thing, I'll avoid it. I'd rather go somewhere else. I'd rather buy online, or I'd rather go to a multi-storey car park and pay a few quid, knowing that I can't be charged hundreds of pounds. Although some people have been had when the card machines they've gone to pay, the card machines have played up, or they've entered the wrong information. So they do try and screw you over any way that they can. So basically I avoid going to places like that, or if I absolutely have to and I pull on, always check the signs. Get your phone out, set the timer on your phone, and make sure that you're off a good 15 minutes before that time expires, because you've got to allow for the queues at the checkout, and you've got to allow for putting the stuff in your car, taking your trolley back and getting off the car park. Personally, I want to see all these companies go bankrupt. I think there's got to be a fairer way of controlling car parks. I know people will park on there and abuse it, especially if it's by somewhere like a hospital or a train station. People think it's free parking and abuse it. But there's a lot of innocent, vulnerable people just not trying to take the piss, and these companies come along and they absolutely do take the piss. £60, £100 fine, but but if you're a good boy and you pay early, it'll only be 60 quid. You can do one. But a little sense of pride that I've actually had 3 and never paid a penny. I knew there was something else I wanted to add. That's why I keep pausing it. Also, I'd like to see if anybody ever did go as far as taking them, of that being taken to court by them, how they'd go if they went down the defence of the evidence is just circumstantial. Because I had the situation where I drove on, had the picture taken, drove off, drove back on again later, had another picture taken when I drove off, and they said it was 8 hours, that first one. So that evidence, really, it's not good evidence, it's circumstantial. And perhaps an unsympathetic judge would say, no, that's good enough for me. But you could put the argument, if one of their debt collectors walked down your path to knock on your door, and you took a photograph of them walking down the path, and then a few days later they come back again and you took a photograph of them walking off your path, you wouldn't be able to use that as evidence and say, look, this person was at my house for a whole week, I want a week's worth of rent. So yeah, the evidence, I think, is flimsy, and if that was argued in court, you might have a chance there. But there's another circumstance, and unfortunately it's written down somewhere, but there was a guy who was getting harassed by, when all the PPI claims were going in, and this chap was getting cold calls 3 times a day, I think, from this PPI company, and always be recorded messages, and he tried to get in touch with them and say, look, stop phoning me, I'm not interested, and he kept getting them all the time. So he actually took them to the small claims court. I think he wrote them a letter and saying that if you contact me again, it's harassment, and so for every time that you call me, I'll stick a charge on, and if you reply back to this letter, or if you contact me again, I will take that as you accepting by the terms and conditions that I've put forward, and I'll expect payment. And then of course they did keep contacting him, and when they wouldn't give him the payment he demanded, he took them to a small claims court. So if you've got the debt collection agency after you, you could write to them and say that you've entered into no contract with them, and that you don't accept that you was driving that car, that it's your car, that the number plates might be photoshopped on, but you don't accept it, you wasn't there. And you could then say that their cold calling letters are harassing you, and for each letter that they send you, you will charge them £100, and if they write to you again, you'll take that they're accepting that £100 charge per letter, they're accepting your terms and conditions, which is quite similar to what they do when you drive on the car park and they say, by driving on here, you've now entered into a contract with us and you accept the terms and conditions, which of course you don't, because a lot of the time you enter a filter lane and you have to drive on their car park, because by the time you realise that there's a fee, you can't do a U-turn, turn around and drive off. It's one way in, one way out. So they trap you. So yeah, if they then keep sending you letters and say they'll take you to court. Just say, okay, I'll counter sue you because all the letters you've sent me, you owe me £100 for each one for administration fees. And lastly, a guy that I sometimes do some work for told me he got a parking thing. He went somewhere, the seaside, and parked in a car park and got a letter from them. They kept sending him letters saying you owe us this and this for parking. And the way he approached it, he sent them a letter back saying he didn't accept it, but on goodwill, he looked at what expense it would have been to them in terms of parking and how that reflects on other car parks, and he thought that £5 was a suitable fee for the time that he'd parked there. And he said, I'll also give you another £5 for your administration fees. So he sent them a cheque for £10, which they never cashed. But all he ever got was letters from them, and he thought, fine, if you ever do take me to court, I can say to the judge, I made a reasonable offer and they declined it. And as yet he hasn't been taken to court. So you've got options, but the way I went, I got mine cleared. So that's that. Oh, I'm light. And if you're interested, I'm smoking Montego Bay, which I won at the Nottingham Pipe Fair. Ta-ra.